Hi, so here we are again. This is the latest in our interviews of people involved in construction and property linked online. And today we've got Ian Softley from Westfield Compliance. So you got your name wrong there, but the company name
And it's better
right.
than what sometimes I'm called anyway.
So we're just going to kick it off and to just delve a little bit into Ian's background. So what was the spark that got you into the business that you're currently in, or even go further back? Was there a route to that journey?
Um, yes, there was. I think I fell into health and safety. I don't think anybody when they're at school suddenly says, oh yeah, I want to be a health and safety officer, or I want to work in health and safety. It's not the most glamorous of occupations. For me, at 16 years old, I was all set to stay on at school to do my A levels, and the careers officer said, "Oh, there's some interviews going on at this large local company. Do you want to go?" I said, "Well, no, I'm staying on." They said, "Well, just for the experience, go for the interview." And I did, and I wanted to go into science-based lab work.
Yeah.
And they offered me a position and said, "Well, we'll pay you to go to college and university whilst you're working with us, so you get day release." So the money won, and I decided to take the job. But
Yeah.
the lab field that I wanted to go into, they didn't have a position at that moment, which was a textile lab. And they said in 6 months' time, we'll transfer you over, but we'll put you in this other laboratory in what was the industrial health unit.
Okay.
6 months later, I was still there, and I loved it and I really enjoyed it. So I stayed. It's changed its name to Occupational Hygiene Unit, but essentially it's the same thing. And it was with a large group who dealt with asbestos products, but also other materials as well. So I got a really good grounding from the age of 16. It was quite ironic, really, because in this country, you had to be 18 to work in asbestos areas,
Yeah.
but they had companies all over Europe, and you had to be 16 to work in those. So every few months, I'd be sent off for 2 weeks with some of my colleagues, and we'd go around Europe sampling and testing and inspecting the
All right.
factories. So I had a great time. And then when I was probably about 21, I got headhunted by a firm, went to them, one of the larger ones in our industry. I worked my way up there from an environmental scientist, as they called us at the time, through to a senior role. Then I became a regional manager, then operations manager, then technical manager to the company. So I'd worked my way up, and I think that was because I actually loved the job. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. And whilst asbestos is my specialism, I deal with the full range of health and safety, from auditing to advice and guidance, Legionella assessments, fire risk assessments, um, workplace environmental monitoring, all those things.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it, and I think I got a kick because I saw the benefits of the towards the health and the safety of the people that you were working with, and also it has benefits to the companies as well, because
Yeah.
a better work environment creates a better workforce. You're not losing time through accidents, injuries, illness, etc. And you try and sell that to people sometimes, that there's a financial benefit to improving the systems, and they don't always believe you. But certainly on that instance, it's where I keep myself grounded. But I worked my way through. I had my own business in partnership with another guy. 2008, there was the big crash in the
Yeah.
industry, and a couple of our clients went bankrupt on us, owing us a lot of money. We restructured. I merged with another business. Then I was approached to head what was probably the largest in our field at the time. Two wealthy investors had bought this company out of administration, and they wanted somebody to get hold of the company and turn it around. At the time, that company was losing over £100,000 a month.
Wow.
So I took up that challenge, went in there, and within 2 years, we got it into a profitable situation. It was the standards had improved. the output, the finances, everything was on track, and I felt unbelievably proud of what we did there. And the two investors sold the business to a European group, and I had to be retained for a short period of time, but was offered a position on the European board. But I hated it.
Yeah.
It was living off spreadsheets, and I like to deal with people, I like to talk with people. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to do the work, and this wasn't me. And my wife said to me at the time, she went, "You're not happy." I said, "I know, but the money's extremely good."
Yeah.
And she went, "I prefer to have a happy husband and us struggle a little bit with money
Yeah.
than to see you as we are." So she was the spark that said, "Right, let's do this." So I resigned. I was well looked after by the business that I'd left, and we got enough finances to set the business up, and it was set up as a family business. So it was myself and my wife and my son-in-law who had got into the industry, and we started from there, just the three of us, and started to build it up and develop it. My son now works within the business as well, and he's doing really well, both on the technical competence, but also the business side as well. So it's a family business that's developing, and we take on people who we know and trust.
Yeah.
So employee wise, we always make sure that the people we are working with, that they're the right fit for the company.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why we've got to where we are.
Okay. So you use the word very proud when you kind of rescued that business, turned it around.
Oh yeah.
But is that your proudest moment in business so far?
No, it's not. It's
Right.
well, I suppose professionally, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
It was quite a huge task to take on, and it did take its toll on me mentally and physically. But it was great to get it to where it was. I think from my point, I can say I'm proud that my business now is. I no longer want to be the biggest company in our field. I want to be a company that delivers the right service to the right people, at the right price. But I'm extremely proud that my business now is not just a family business, but it's a collection of people who trust each other. Because
Yeah.
I believe trust is so important, both with my staff, also with clients as well. I think we've got to build ourselves on trust. I think commercially, when we first set the business up, there was the three of us.
Yeah.
And through a referral, I got to a client, and they had a system in place for managing all their social housing stock. They had 30,000+ houses. It wasn't working right. So I said, "Look, I'll come in, I'll have an overview of your process, and I'll do some audits of the people you've got currently doing your surveys and managing your asbestos." So we went in, did the overview, did the review, which was great, and found that they got real problems. The company that did the surveys was also the removal company.
Yeah.
So effectively, they were writing their own specification and checks. And that was the case. They were identifying things as asbestos that weren't, and then charging them to remove them. And you can sit back and say, "Well, that client must have been really stupid." But I'm telling you now, there are still hundreds and hundreds of organisations that still are in the same boat, experiencing that same level of manipulation, to put it tactfully.
Yeah.
So we produced a report for them and told them what the problems were and how it was. And they went, "Great, thank you. We're going to take this all out to tender now."
Yeah.
I thought, "Oh, great, I've done myself out of a job here." So they used our format and what we suggested they should be looking for within an organisation. And they took it out to tender. and it went out to all the big boys and all the big companies, etc. And they asked us to tender for it, but in real terms, there was no way we were going to win it. I'd got a couple of people who worked with me, and we used them on an ad hoc basis, on a subcontract basis at the time. So, but the number of staff that we needed, we no way we could have got that. But I did the tender, and I did all the quality assessments and put that through, and submitted it. We actually said, myself and Luke, who's my son-in-law but also operations director, we said we'll use it as just a training exercise, so it sets our systems up to tender with no hope whatsoever of actually winning this. And we were driving back up the M1 after completing a job in Derby, and the phone rang, and I answered it on hands-free. Didn't pick the phone up, but it was hands-free. Yeah. And it was the company, the housing association, informing us that we'd won the contract.
Wow.
I kept my cool. I really kept my cool. I was like, oh, great, that's fantastic, wonderful. Put the phone down, and I actually needed to pull off at the next junction because we were bouncing in the car. It was a real, yes, go on, I've got it. and we sat back and said, right, we've got it now. How do we do it?
Yeah.
So we then set about, we had literally a month's lead-in time to get our systems in place to be able to deliver this. But we were insistent right from the start that we do it right, and we deliver, and we make it difficult for them to ever use anybody else.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a manipulative way. What I mean is I want to deliver this service so good that nobody else can beat us.
Yeah.
And we've done it. That was 2013. We still work for that organisation. We've retendered 3 times, and we've just been given a 5-year extension to our contract. We've changed their whole system, and this is the important thing that we did for them. Our service was cost-free, because the money we were saving on the removal side was greater than the money they were spending on our service, because the previous organisation had taken so much out of them.
Wow.
And cost them so much. So effectively, ours was the savings we made was net. So I think that's probably my proudest moment on that side of it.
Yeah, that was my question, because I was going to say, if it's apart from the proudest moment, what's your biggest contract win? And I think you just answered that.
We've won other contracts as well, but yeah, that's probably one of my favourites. Because not only did we win a big contract that was financially viable for us and delivered for the client, but we've changed their systems. It's so efficient. They've got better data handling. They're managing the contractors, the plumbers, the electricians. We're protecting them when they're going into properties. We're protecting their finances as well by giving them a system that's just delivers for them.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then we're going to move on to. I was in Vietnam, and looking out the window in my apartment, and I could see this hotel. And on the top floor, probably about floor 5, there was a guy stood on the railings of the balcony, leaning out with one hand on a little out-jutting post with a sign, and his mate was holding his belt. And he was trying to fix the sign with one hand. So that's an example of maybe health and safety non-compliance.
Just a little bit, yeah.
So
but you see that in this country still.
Yeah, I don't think you see it as much as in Vietnam. My God,
probably not. No,
they haven't invented scaffolding or health and safety yet. I mean, why do you need scaffolding when you've got planks you can walk along on the 20th floor?
Yeah, I was on a site with the health and safety inspector.
Yeah,
on this, it was a social housing scheme, and we were walking around having a look at it because he was inspecting the contractor, and we looked out the window and there was some roofers on the houses opposite,
Yeah.
with no ladders, no edge protection, no scaffolding up, walking round the ridge and sliding the tiles down. He went, "I'll be back in a minute."
Well, that was leading me into just, can you just tell us about the range of services that you offer? Because you mentioned asbestos.
Yeah,
I know you've got a
I mean,
laboratory somewhere.
we do, yeah. As I said, my specialist field is asbestos management, and
Yeah,
that covers asbestos surveying of properties, whether they're small individual houses through to large industrial complexes. Um, I've also my background, but also the more expertise within the business in the general health and safety field.
yeah,
We've done quite a lot of work with clients. We've got several clients at the moment where we're going and act almost as their health and safety eyes and ears. So they have
yeah,
systems in place. We go in, review them, audit them, improve them, working with them rather than taking it away from them.
yeah,
Because I do believe health and safety, it comes from within.
yeah,
You can't just have one person or one organization that looks after all your health and safety. It's something you have to embed with all your staff and your operations, so it actually works and pays off.
yeah,
Because if it's a tick box, it will cost you money.
yeah,
If it's embedded, it becomes second nature, and it will actually improve the way that you work, the way that you undertake all your projects. So health and safety is a strong one. We also cover Legionella risk assessment, so that's assessing all your water systems to ensure that there's no risk from the
yeah.
Legionnaire's disease, and also fire risk assessments as well. So they're probably the four key main areas. But on the asbestos field, as I said, there's the surveying, there's the consultancy side of it, where we'll actually work with people to put systems in place. We've got our own laboratory for the analysis of samples.
Yeah.
So it's a key one-stop shop really for on that basis.
Okay. Well, instead of driving down the motorway, imagine that you're sitting there relaxed at your desk and the phone rings, and this time it's another inquiry. What would be a perfect introduction for you or a project win for you? What would you want that phone call
I
to
should sit here and say the one that's the most profitable,
be? Yeah.
but that's probably why I'm not a millionaire now. Because mine would be, I mean, any project really we're grateful for. So it doesn't matter how large or small. For me, it would be one where you can really get your teeth into.
Yeah.
So if we get a phone call, the decision of whether I'd hand it over to one of my staff or whether I'd actually take control of it myself would be, what's the added value can we give? Is it an interesting one? Yeah, I love the large projects where you get loads and loads of repeat, instructions coming through all the time. But I do like the ones where you can work with the client, develop them,
Yeah.
and improve their systems. I was at a networking event, if you can call it a networking event. I don't do a lot of them, to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
But I was one in London. I was talking to a guy who was a project manager for. They will buy residential properties, refurbish them, and then put them out to various trusts and organisations. And this guy was saying that asbestos was a major problem for them because they'd buy these houses and budget £10,000 to renovate it, and then suddenly they'd find asbestos and it cost them 30,000,
Yeah.
and they'd lost money. Everybody lost money, and he was doing quite a lot of work with charities and organisations, etc. And I said, well, that's the problem. People always think of the asbestos survey as an afterthought. If you do, when you're buying a house, you have to have a survey undertaken before the mortgage people will give you the survey.
Yeah.
That tells you whether it's going to fall down or the wiring's okay, etc. But virtually all the pre-purchase surveys that are undertaken will have a little clause in saying, oh, there may be asbestos present, it might be worth looking. But nobody takes that on. Very few people take that up. See, if you do it before you've bought the property, you've then got two options. If there's a lot of asbestos there, you go back to the vendor and say, it's going to cost me 10,000, 20,000 to remove this, I'm reducing my bid by 20,000. They panic because the next person to buy it may find the same thing. So usually there's a compromise somewhere down that line. So you're actually mitigating your cost risks by assessing it beforehand. Or it's quite a significant risk, therefore you just pull out the purchase and nobody loses money. And I was just having a chat in this with the guy and saying, you know, this is how people should do it. I then got a phone call a couple of weeks later saying, you were speaking to this guy. My name's from, it's a very large charity dealing with homelessness and support. And they buy lots of houses and then for the support so that people who've hit hard times, homeless or struggling. They did quite a lot for victims of domestic abuse, etc. And they had thousands of houses across the country.
Yeah.
But they were constantly adding to that. And he said, can you come and speak to us? So I went and saw them. And it was the same thing. That's their problem. So we started a system in place where we'd go and assess them before they bought the property. And we've saved them a fortune, absolute fortune. Just be giving them that purchasing power of saying, this is how much we're going to reduce the risk, or this we're actually walking away from this risk.
Yeah.
And it was good that's the sort of contract I like.
Yeah.
The ones where you can get in, you can protect people, you can protect the businesses that you're working for, but you can also make sure that they can remain compliant. And in that instance, you're providing a really good, safe environment for people who need it. But also you've allowed them to have the freedom, the financial capacity to buy more, to support more people. So they're the good ones. They're the real good ones.
Yeah. It's almost like you've read these questions before I've asked them, because I was going to ask you about a job you've won as a result of a referral from networking. And that was one.
There's probably I'll tell you another. I'm sorry, I'm probably going over the time that we normally spend on this. But I was at an event. It was a health and safety conference, and they had a small breakout networking group, or effectively, or should we call it, we had drinks in the pub afterwards. But I was talking to a guy, and we were mentioning about the way Manchester had developed and how it had really come up from how it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And I was saying that about the Arndale bomb attack. But the IRA blew up the vehicle outside the Arndale Centre. And I said that I was just telling him the story. I was the first person in there after the structural engineers had said that the building wasn't going to collapse, or buildings, should we say. And I went in to do an assessment for the asbestos, but also from other aspects as well. And I was just talking through the experience of it. And exactly the same, about a week or so later, I got a phone call from a developer project manager who was developing one of the large historic buildings around that area where I'd worked in. And he just said to me, I was speaking to a colleague who told me that you'd worked on this after we're going to completely renovate this again. And I went in there and I remembered going in there and managing the project to remove the asbestos after the bomb attacks. And so I'd got so much background knowledge to help. And we won we quoted for it, we won the project, we managed the surveys, we managed what was left of the removal works on site. We provided them with the systems that they could put in place so that all the rest of the contractors got easy access to the information that they needed. And helped the smooth running of that project. But it was good. Another little time where just being able to chat with people and share your experience, and they remember that, and then they'll speak to a friend or a colleague, and that gets shared.
Okay, well, one of the things I'm trying to do is encourage people who've never really taken part in networking before to give it a go. And one of the questions I'm going to ask is, would you class yourself as a networking extrovert or introvert?
Oh wow.
Because
I would probably say I'm an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert, whichever way you want to put it. I'm not a natural networker.
yeah,
I'm definitely not an outward salesman. I'm not a pushy salesperson.
yeah,
So when I go to a networking event or I sit on an online event, I'm very much a bit reserved initially.
yeah,
And I still always have that little bit of nerves when you first click,
yeah,
attend or walk through the door. And then, so I would never probably class myself as an extrovert, but
yeah,
I tend to sit back and relax, survey the room or survey the Zoom, whichever way you want to put it,
yeah.
and then slowly but surely get involved.
Yeah, because the reason I'm raising it really is it's surprising how many people don't class themselves as an extrovert. And a lot of the people who don't attend networking events don't attend because they see themselves as introverts, and you need
Mm.
to be an extrovert. And I think my experience as a confirmed networking introvert over the years, I cheat, I organize them. That helps me disappear into the background. But I'm trying to, particularly with the formats that we did. It was a shame we couldn't make the event last couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it
We
looks a
have,
really good event.
yeah, well, on arrival we have one-to-one meetings because the things introverts don't like, and well, at least from my point of view, is having to survey the room and think, oh, where do I start? There's a big crowd and you've got to just
Mm.
wade in there. That for me as an introvert, and I've actually walked away from events before I've walked in because I just thought, oh, I just can't face that. So that's why I want one-to-ones on arrival, and people know that beforehand,
Mm.
but they don't walk away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting to hear people's kind of judgment on themselves, because it's surprising how many people say that. Well, they don't necessarily class themselves as an extrovert.
No, no, I wouldn't. I think we spoke earlier that a lot of the perception of a networking event goes back to how it used to be years back, where networking events were just attended by salespeople, or the perception was it was attended by salespeople
Yeah,
who were all quite, out there, in your face, jolly, big smiles in there. And if
yeah,
you've had a hard day on site or working away in the office and you turn up there feeling a bit jaded and a bit run down, and in your face you've got all these happy, jolly, confident people, it does knock yourself back a little bit. And I
yeah.
think
That's
now it's a lot it's a lot easier. I like
yeah,
to think the best networking is it becomes a collection of mutually respected, almost friends.
yeah. Well, that's the vibe that we're going for, really, which is why we've got another question coming up in a moment, which goes against the grain for those who like structured, professional, corporate approaches. Uh, but I'll hold that question for a minute. So, what tips would you give to somebody who was attending a networking event for the first time?
Um, Firstly, be yourself.
Yeah,
And don't be too don't go in there with with a preconceived idea of what you think people want to see or hear.
yeah,
Just relax. Go in there. If you're not very confident, then just ease yourself into it slowly.
yeah,
If you're confident, then yeah, just go in there. I personally get put off by people who are too forward about. Sometimes I walk in and say, "Hey, I can sell you this. Would you like to?"
yeah,
And likewise, I would never do that in those instances. So it's relax, sit back, take your time,
yeah,
wait for you to become a little bit more confident. If you are a bit unsure, look for maybe some like-minded people and
yeah,
work your way in. Deal with the one-to-ones and get to know people individually. and then once you're relaxed, you then float around the room or the Zoom, whichever.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not by any means an expert in this. That's just my own.
yeah, no, that's good advice. I mean, one of the things I've seen in networking events, and it's where people get it wrong. I see it like a relay race, and the first objective is to get the baton round. Whereas on the first baton change, some people are dipping for the line, they're going for the sale immediately. When really it's a journey of trust. You've got to get that baton around and you've got to develop trust. And each baton change is developing the trust to a level where people can either buy from you directly because they've got enough faith in you, or they could recommend you. And that's where I think be yourself is superb advice. If you just go there with the objective of not getting sales, just being yourself and just meeting people, and that's why it's chip butty and curry, because if we had posh canapes and we all wore suits, then it just changes the mood. If you're coming in your overalls and you're going to dip chip butty in your curry, it's
I don't think I'd be attending if it was suits and canapes. That's the thing.
So after all that, I mean, they're all. I've really appreciated your input and all the pearls of wisdom you've given us. But there is one bigger topic in construction and property which is on everyone's lips. So the final question for you is: are you for or against garden gnomes, and why?
Oof. Now, I have to be measured in my response here.
Okay.
I don't want to offend any. Would it be classed as a gnomophile?
Yeah.
Any gnome lovers?
Yeah.
But I'm definitely against them.
Okay.
I'm not into gardening. My wife would have a totally different answer to this. I'm not into gardening. If it was up to me, my garden would be either perfect lawn or astroturf with a net at the end of it.
Yeah.
And to play football on it. So if the gnomes were there, I'd be using them as defenders or something to try and go around. But no, I'm sorry, gnome lovers. I'm definitely against.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether you've seen our website, but my mother features on the website with a testimonial that she's given us. But my mother is in the same camp as you. She hates garden gnomes, which of course means that my brother and me will always buy them because she detests them. But on that point, that changes our graph. We've got a bit of a controversial headline for the WhatsApp group.
Well, I'd always like to throw the little bomb in and just walk away.
Excellent. Well, it needs to be representative and scientific. So thanks for that. So as before, at the end of these interviews, I'm actually apologising for not having any fancy graphics and for not closing the curtain. So we've got the sunshine in the face, and it's bouncing off my bald head. See?
Oh, so I sympathise. I do sympathise.
Yeah. So thanks very much for your time, Ian. Have you got any final words, or should we just leave it there?
I think I've
expelled
all my pearls of wisdom, as we said. So, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much, Ian. Cheers.
Thank you.